Hello and welcome back to the Nginx Mastery series. In this tutorial, or by the end of this tutorial, you would have learned how to secure a URL using the secure link secret directive. So let's start off by visualizing what it is we're trying to achieve in this tutorial. This is the setup that we're going to be working with. So we have an Nginx container, Docker container, and we have a container which is running Django and Unicorn. And there's no need for us to understand anything about Django. This isn't a Django tutorial. We are focusing on Nginx. Django provides us a set of tools to help us create configurations in Nginx or explore some of the different configurations within Nginx. For this tutorial, we only actually need one container, but the setup that we've been working with over the last 5 or 6 tutorials in this series, it does have a Django container, so you will see that. It is irrelevant in this tutorial, don't worry. Okay, so let's pretend we have some sort of web service whereby we are selling digital products. The customer would pay for the product. They would be presented with a link where they can go ahead and download their digital product. So let's just imagine if we had the product and at the end of a normal URL, something like this here. So member download product, whatever the product is, an image, a video, a piece of software, whatever. We wouldn't want to have our product available via a very simple link like this because anyone could access it with this URL. So in this tutorial, we're going to learn how to secure a URL. And we're going to do that, well, there's many ways we can do that, but in this tutorial, we're going to do that by utilizing the secure link directive. And what that's going to provide us is a way of creating a hash similar to what you see here. And that's going to act like a key. And only if the user has this key and utilizes it within the URL, will they be able to then access the URL and that digital product, say, and be able to download it. So you might have already come to the conclusion it's just the same. If I had a link like this, a URL like this, it takes me to the product to download. And if I had a link like this, they're both shareable. I could share this link to someone else and they could download the product, for example, and I could share this link in a similar fashion. So what is the point? This tutorial is just showcasing how to set up a basic secured URL. Going through this process, there are other mechanisms that we can add to this. For example, a timed element here so that this secure URL would expire after a certain amount of time. So those are other kind of parameters that we can bring into the mix to further secure this link. Let's get started. If you are following this step by step, you're going to need to use a link in the video description. Go ahead and download part 9. We're going to need to probably download all of this, but open up in part 9 in Visual Studio Code, and we're going to work from this base and go ahead and configure our new Nginx server with a secure URL. Once you've downloaded part 9, opened up in Visual Studio Code, let's just go ahead and make a few changes here. So first of all, we're going to utilize a new volume because we're going to make a new folder inside of our Nginx container. So yeah, let's go ahead first of all, grab Docker here, and we're going to make a new volume here. So let's go ahead and /Nginx inside of this folder here. We're going to make a new folder. We're going to call that secure or secure. Okay, and then we're going to map that across to our Nginx home /secure folder, which we're going to build. Okay, so with that in place, we need to just make sure that we're going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call that secure. Yeah, that's all we need. I'm going to put a new file in there for now. So an index file, secure file. Okay, so we'll do that for now. So that's a new folder there in the Nginx folder. And then in addition to that, we are going to just create a new directory whenever we build. So let's go ahead and create a home /secure. There we go. So that's going to create the folder when we build the image and container. And then we're going to map across this folder so that we can work within it, within Visual Studio Code here. So I am using Docker Desktop. Just make sure that everything is clean. Well, at least if you're not familiar with working with Docker Desktop, it can be better when you're following a tutorial and you're new to technology just to start off completely fresh. So just going to remove everything here very quickly. Okay. If you have been following the other tutorials, I have finally sorted out Django. So we don't need to, well, in actual fact, we don't need to touch Django in this tutorial. So it doesn't really matter, but I have configured the environment variable. So we don't need to worry about that. So let's just go for Docker Compose here and then up. That should start building. Now you might also see the DNS. So go back to, I think, the first or second tutorial in this series. If you wanted to use a local DNS server here, I'll show you how to do that. That's just going to allow you to use a domain name instead of having to type in 127.001 if you wanted to access your web server. Right. Okay, so let's go over to config it. Now I'm using the Docker extension. You can see all the containers are working. So configuration is good so far. So I can get rid of all this. So inside the Nginx config file, let's just remove, well, actually, let's not remove everything. Let's just get rid of that. And we're just going to need the server block. So we'll just keep the server block and the listen there so we know which port we're listening on, and we're going to receive requests on. So in order for us to understand this configuration, we're going to need to talk a little bit about rewrite rules. We haven't discussed this yet in this series. So a rewrite rule essentially just changes part or maybe all of the URL. So the client, the user would type in /hello, and we could use a rewrite to change that location to another location. So let's just quickly go through that as a simple example. So let's imagine we had a location block here called member, and then we're going to use rewrite. So if someone types in /member, they're going to be then redirected. So match the first component, /secret. They're going to be redirected to /secret. So we can then generate a new location block. Let's call this /secret. So it needs to match what we've rewritten there. And then we can then redirect them somewhere else. So let's create a root here, and then home. So home, why home? Well, if you remember what we did, we created this secure folder, or folder called secure, sorry, inside of the home directory. So if I go into my Nginx server here, I can open the files. Remember, this is the, let's get rid of this. This is the extension for Visual Studio Code. So I can actually go into the container here, have a look at home. I've got my secure folder and I've got the file inside of it already. So that's the reference there to home, reference to this folder here. Now notice that I haven't referenced here the secure folder, and we'll see why that is shortly. So with this in place, let's just go into attach a shell. So we can go to the container, inside the container for Nginx here. Let's just do an Nginx reload. Oh, I've forgotten the S. Okay, apologies. I'm going to do quick. I need to semicolon. There we go. Right, so let's go back into our browser. Let's type in 127.0.0. I am just using the loopback address here, nothing else. Okay, so that's a home folder. We haven't set up anything there. So let's go to member. And you can see that that has taken us to secret. So you can see we had a 404? Yeah, 404 there, because we haven't matched this up correctly, but I just wanted to show you something and the reason why I did that. So I'm just going to right click and open up the logs for the Nginx container here, because what's happening here in actual fact, notice that we're trying to open /home and then /secret. So this is where a lot of students failed to understand straight away what's happening. When we utilize the rewrite here with this location block, this root here, we need to remember this is the root and this is the location that we're trying to access. So in actual fact, the actual location that we're trying to access at the moment is root home /secret. So this is being applied here, secret is being applied here, and that's the actual then location that we're trying to access the files within. And obviously that doesn't match up our folder structure here. So that's what we're trying to access there. So that's important to understand. So therefore, if I now change this to secure on both, that now will match up our home, root home, and then the secure folder. And then we should be able to then view the index page. So let's just go back into the shell of the container here. We're going to reload and then refresh. And we go back because now it's not called secure. And there we go. So we can now access our file. And notice that we have changed the URL. It looks like it's changed here to secure from member. So we've used our rewrite rule there. And now we can access the file. So let's now create some or apply some security to this. So we're now going to use some basic secured or create a basic secured URL. So let's go ahead first of all, and we'll define the secure link secret. Okay, so this is going to be a string. So this is a secret secure link directive. So let's just create a key for this. There we go. Okay, so with that in place, that's our secret. And we're going to utilize that and the path to create a hash that we're then going to use as the kind of secure key to access our secure link. Now, what we might want to do is provide some feedback to the user if the secure link isn't correctly assigned. So we can create an if here. So let's go for use right key. So we're going to say secure link equals so basically if we don't utilize a secure link or a correct secure link, then we're basically going to return let's go ahead and just return a 403 error. So let's just see this in action. Let's just do a reload. We're going to do a let's just go back to our member. And you can see here we get the forbidden. So we're now expecting some sort of key. So this is why we're returning forbidden. So let's just quickly tidy this up. You can see we've got this gray, the syntax here. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to work, but it could be tidied up slightly. So let's just put this on a new line. There we go. Just to quickly explain this as well, secure link. So here then, if the user doesn't utilize or use the correct hash in the URL, Nginx will set the secure link variable behind the scenes to an empty string. So this is just indicating the fact that the user entered the wrong hash into the URL or hasn't entered a hash at all. So it will return an empty string, and that's why we then return to the user a 403. Okay, so now then we extend the rewrite here. So we want to also pass in the secure link. So let's go ahead and do that. So $secure link. So now we have everything in place. We just need to create our hash so that we can utilize that in the URL to generate our secure link. Right, so there are two methods generally here that are presented online and in resources. First is using OpenSSL, the MD5 command with the hex option. And I generally like to utilize a Python approach. So I utilize the hashlib built-in library for this. And I generally find, for some reason, on this MacBook here, that when I utilize and I'd love to take your input on this, generally when I utilize OpenSSL, it doesn't tend to work. The hash that's produced is incorrect for some reason. So it's worth noting that if you are trying to do that and it is causing errors. So when I produce the hash in a minute, you will be able to utilize that to practice yours and to generate, if you can generate the same hash, and that'd be a good indication for you whether your approach is working and generating the correct hash output. Okay, so here I'm going to be utilizing Python then and the hash lib. So what I'm going to need to do is type in hash lib.md5. So we'll run this in a minute. I'll just write this out and explain this if needs be. So B, and then I'm going to need to define, pass in two things here. First of all, the file name and maybe the folder structure we're going to use. So here we have home secure. And I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to make a new folder called, file. And then we go in there and we create a new file in there called test.mp3. Right, so this is going to be a link where people can access this MP3 file, for example. Obviously, this isn't going to exist. So secondly, what we're going to need is our actual secret that we defined earlier. So here is our secret up here. So I'm just going to copy this. So there's no space or anything here. Straight afterwards, don't forget the F3 is part of MP3 file extension. So that there then is our secret link that gets added, and this is then going to generate our hash. So we're going to say hex digest, and that's it. So let's go ahead and run this. Now yours might be slightly different. Remember, we're going to make this folder structure shortly. So let's go into Python here. Okay, I'm in the wrong shell. Okay, let's go back to my main console, my main terminal, sorry. So open up a new terminal here, Python 3. Okay, that takes me into the shell. I can then go ahead and import hash lib. Okay, so that's a standard Python library. And now I can just pass this in. And then that would generate our hash key. Okay, so I'm just going to record that there. So that's our hash key in place. So just remove that, and that for now. Okay. Right, so next up, I'm just going to generate our new folder. So inside of secure here, new folder, that's going to be called file. New folder, yeah, called file. And then inside of here, I'm going to create a new file, and that's just called test.mp3. Obviously, it's not an actual MP3 file, but I'm just going to call it test.mp3. Happy days. So that's the secure file we want to be downloading. Right, so now we have that in place. Just double check, because we're using a volume, that should map across over to our server here. So you can see that hasn't worked. So in home, secure, let's just do a refresh. There we go. So I refreshed here. You can now see in my container, I have a new folder called file. And then inside there, I've got my file. Okay, so that's on the container. So that's all good to go. So let's remember what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to access the file here in this location. So home/secure/ and then that's going to be file/ and then test.mp3. So that's where it's currently stored, right? So remember, we're using root here, so we just need to express /home. So we're going to grab secure. And then what we're going to do is in the URL, we're going to pass in the file structure file and then test.mp3. Okay, so let's just grab this. Let's go into here. So we're going to go from member, and then we're going to pass in our hash. And we're going to say /file/ and then our file was called test.mp3. Okay, so notice that we are presented with /secure, and the reason why that is because I haven't actually updated anything just yet. So let's just comment that out. I think I need to just reload. Let's give that a go. Just attach a shell there. Okay, so let's go back in. Let's try this again. Remember /file test. Okay, so again, we are presented with the secure file. But I mean, the good thing is at the moment is that well, we're not getting an error, which is great. Okay, so going back to the configuration here, I wanted just to kind of draw into utilizing the internal declaration. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to say internal. Okay, so don't forget the semicolon. Right, so what is internal? So the internal declaration is essentially tells Nginx that the path that we're defining here is only going to be accessible through rewrites. So we can only access that through a rewrite, and that's going to be important as part of the security for this, because we have to go through member in order to get to this. We can't essentially then move to this URL directly. So let's go ahead and reload again. So now we reloaded. Let's try this out once more. So we're going to go through member / and then our hash there /test, and then that's the folder, test folder, remember we created, and then file, sorry, /test.mp3. And there we go. So we now have access to the file. We can maybe stream it, download it, and that creates then a secure link. So let's just showcase internal in place. Now remember, member here is just taking us to that redirect. Now let's just go to that redirect directly. Now also notice, sorry, that you don't actually see this change from member to, if you remember, we're doing a redirect to secure. So that isn't actually changing anymore, notice. So if I were to try and now go to secure / you can see that we get a not found. So we can't actually go directly. Like I said, we're using internal now, which tells Nginx that this path is only accessible through rewrites in the Nginx configuration here. There we have it. So we've created now a secure URL using secure link secret directive. Now you might not be totally amazed at that, but we're building up here to then now, like I previously mentioned, we can now add some extra layers to this. So we could add some time parameters. We'll go through that tutorial maybe next, and then I'll take you through an example, and we'll use Django as an example. Maybe we can generate our secret keys automatically so that we can maybe provide additional keys to users when they have maybe purchased a product, and then they can utilize that to download their product for us for a certain amount of time. So they have a time frame to download that product. That would be very interesting to then kind of tie everything together. So hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial. Now don't forget, remember that if you are having problems with your hash, this hash here will be exactly the same as yours if you were to use this command. So if you do use any other approaches to create your hash, just make sure that it's working by testing it against this here before you then go and apply and try that in your configuration. So there is quite a lot going on there if you're new to Nginx and maybe programming in general. So hopefully I broke that down for you nicely. It's always good to get feedback from you, whether that was useful or not, whether I was too quick or too slow, if I missed something that was important. So please let me know. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you hopefully in the next tutorial. Just a quick thank you again to all the members and supporters of this channel. It's always very grateful of your support. If you would like to support the channel further, you can do maybe as a channel member or follow us on Patreon. If that isn't your thing, of course, you can like and subscribe and maybe follow us on Twitter or Facebook, TikTok, or potentially join our Discord channel. Thank you very much for listening again. And again, I hope to see you in the next tutorial.